You grew up with the flannel graph version of the Bible, Noah's Ark with the cute giraffes, David and the smooth stones, and maybe a lion's den that looked like a petting zoo. But there is a version of this book that would get a rating in any movie theater. And today we're looking at the 5 stories they skipped in Sunday school because they were too graphic, too petty, or too weird for the pews. We're talking secret assassinations, biological warfare, and a hairline joke that ended in a bloodbath. Have you ever heard the story of Ehud? It's one of the wildest, most graphic stories in the entire Bible. Picture this. The Israelites are being oppressed by King Eglon of Moab. Now, the Bible doesn't mince words when describing this guy. It literally calls him an extremely fat man. So, the Israelites cry out for a savior, and along comes a man named Ehud. Ehud's plan is both brilliant and brutal. First, he crafts a special double-edged dagger, about 1.5 feet long. Since he's left-handed, he cleverly straps it to his right thigh, hidden under his clothes. This is a key detail because guards would typically search a person's left side, assuming they were right-handed. With his weapon concealed, Ehud goes to King Eglon's palace, claiming he has a tribute to deliver. After presenting the gifts, he sends everyone away and leans in close to the king. He says, "I have a secret message for you from God." Intrigued, the king dismisses his attendants so they can be completely alone in his cool, private rooftop chamber. This is where it gets intense. As the king stands up, Ehud reaches with his left hand, pulls out the dagger from his right thigh, and plunges it deep into the king's massive belly. The Bible gets incredibly graphic here. It says the fat of the king's stomach was so thick that it completely swallowed the sword, handle and all. And then, well, the text says the king's insides came out. It's a very visceral, shocking moment. Ehud doesn't stick around to admire his work. He pulls the dagger out, leaves the king slumped over, and locks the doors to the chamber from the inside before slipping out through a side porch. Meanwhile, the king's guards are waiting outside, and they wait and wait. After a while they start to get a little concerned, but they come up with a rather polite explanation for the delay. They figure he's just relieving himself, taking a long time in the bathroom. They wait so long that they actually start to feel embarrassed for him. Finally, after hours have passed, their patience runs out. They grab a key, unlock the doors, and find their king lying dead on the floor. But by this point, it's way too late. Ehud has made his escape. He got away clean, rallied the Israelite troops, and led them to victory over the Moabites, securing 80 years of peace for the land. It's a jaw-dropping story of cunning, strategy, and sheer goal. Have you ever heard the saying, "Don't take candy from strangers"? Well, after this story, you might want to add, "Don't drink milk from strangers" to your list. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and, frankly, metal stories from ancient texts, the tale of Jael and Sisera. So, it's a time of major conflict. The Israelites are at war, and their main adversary is a powerful general named Sisera. He's the commander of a formidable army with 900 iron chariots, a real powerhouse in his day. But things have gone terribly wrong for him. His army has been completely routed in a surprise attack, and he is now the most wanted man in the region, running for his life across the hot, dusty landscape. Exhausted, desperate, and alone, Sisera stumbles upon a seemingly safe haven, a lone tent pitched in the wilderness. This tent belongs to a woman named Jael. Now, Jael's husband, Heber, had a peace treaty with Sisera's king. So Sisera probably thought this was the safest place he could possibly be. He sees the tent and thinks, finally, a place to rest, a friendly face. Jael comes out to meet him, and she plays the part of the perfect, kind hostess. She greets him warmly, "Come in, my lord, come in to me. Do not be afraid." Her words are like a cool balm on his frayed nerves. He's just escaped a battlefield, his heart is pounding, and here is this calm, welcoming woman offering him sanctuary. He asks for a little water, he's so thirsty from running. But Jael, ever the gracious host, goes above and beyond. She doesn't just give him water, she opens a fresh skin of milk, warm and comforting, and offers it to him. Sisera drinks the milk, feeling the tension finally leave his body. He's safe, he's hidden. Jael then covers him with a thick, heavy rug, making him even more comfortable and concealed. He's so worn out that he quickly falls into a deep, profound sleep. You can just imagine him snoring away, completely oblivious, dreaming of his narrow escape. But this is where the story takes a sharp, brutal turn. Jael wasn't planning a rescue, she was planning an execution. While Sisera is dead to the world, she takes matters into her own hands. Quietly, she picks up two very specific tools from around her tent: a long, sharp tent peg and a heavy mallet, the kind you'd use to hammer stakes into the hard ground. She creeps over to the sleeping general. There's no hesitation. With a strength and resolve that is both terrifying and awesome, she places the point of the tent stake against his temple. And then, with one or more powerful swings of the mallet, she drives that stake clean through his head and pins him to the floor of her tent. A little while later, the Israelite commander Barak shows up, hot on Sisera's trail. He's searching everywhere for his defeated enemy. Jael just calmly walks out of her tent to meet him and says, "Come and I will show you the man whom you are seeking." The great, feared General Sisera, dispatched not by an army on the battlefield, but by one woman with a tent peg. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected people can be the most dangerous. Have you ever heard of a dowry that wasn't about money or property, but about, well, something much more intense? This is one of the wildest stories from ancient history, a tale of love, rivalry, and an absolutely insane bride price. The story features David, a young hero who's just skyrocketed to fame. He's got his eye on Michal, the daughter of King Saul. Sounds like a fairy tale, right? Not quite. See, King Saul isn't David's biggest fan. In fact, he's incredibly jealous of David's popularity and sees him as a threat. So when David asks to marry his daughter, Saul sees an opportunity. Not to welcome a new son, but to get rid of his rival for good. Saul comes up with a plan. He tells David, "I don't want any silver or gold for my daughter's hand. The price is much more specific." He then lays out his demand: the lives of 100 of their sworn enemies, the Philistines. Saul is thinking, perfect. David will march into enemy territory, try to pull off this impossible mission, and the Philistines will take care of him for me. Problem solved. It was a trap, plain and simple, designed to lead David to his certain doom. But Saul seriously underestimated David. David hears the bride price and doesn't even flinch. He accepts the challenge. Maybe he saw it as a chance to prove his loyalty and courage, or maybe he was just that determined to marry Michal. So, David gathers his men and heads out. He doesn't just aim for the target of 100. No, David was an overachiever, he doubles it. He and his men successfully defeat 200 Philistines. Now picture the scene that follows. David returns to the palace, not with bags of gold, but with proof of his victory. He walks right up to King Saul and presents the evidence. It's hard to imagine what Saul's face looked like in that moment. His perfect plan had not only failed, but it had backfired spectacularly, making David look even more heroic and favored by God. Saul had no choice. He had to honor his word. David had paid the bride price in full, with a gruesome keep the change bonus, and so David married Michal, his first wife. His story isn't just a strange historical footnote, it's a powerful look at the high-stakes political drama of the ancient world. It shows us the lengths people would go to for power and how cunning and courage could overcome even the most malicious schemes. It remains one of the most bizarre and intense marriage negotiations ever recorded. Have you ever heard the one about the prophet and the bears? It's a wild story from the Old Testament, specifically from the second book of Kings. Now, Elisha had just taken over from the legendary prophet Elisha, who, fun fact, didn't die but was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. So, Elisha has some pretty big sandals to fill. The story goes that Elisha is walking along the road heading to a town called Bethel. As he's making his way, a group of young men comes out from the town. The Bible describes them as youths, but we're not talking about a bunch of 5-year-olds. Think more like a rowdy gang of teenagers or young adults, probably known for causing trouble. And there were a lot of them, about 42 to be exact. So, this group sees Elisha and for some reason they decide to start mocking him. Maybe they didn't like prophets, maybe they were just bored, or maybe they noticed his receding hairline. They start chanting at him, "Go on up, you bald head. Go on up, you bald head." Now, what does this chant even mean? Go on up was likely a jab at his predecessor Elijah. They were basically saying, "Hey Baldy, why didn't you disappear into the sky like your master did?" It was incredibly disrespectful, not just to Elisha personally, but to his role as God's chosen prophet. They were essentially mocking God himself. Elisha, hearing this, doesn't just ignore it and walk away. He stops, turns around, looks them right in the eyes, and curses them in the name of the Lord. He's not just throwing insults back, he's invoking divine authority against their mockery. And what happens next is where the story takes a truly shocking turn. Immediately after Elisha speaks the curse, 2 female bears come charging out of the nearby woods. These weren't cuddly teddy bears. They were furious, protective mother bears, and they were on a mission. The bears attacked the group of young men and mauled all 42 of them. The Bible doesn't mince words. Here it was a brutal and swift response. So, what are we supposed to make of this absolutely bonkers story? Well, it delivers a powerful message. It shows that disrespecting a representative of God was considered a very serious offense. God's honor was tied to his prophets, and he would fiercely protect them. It was a clear, and frankly terrifying, demonstration to everyone that Elisha was the real deal, and messing with him was a terrible idea. And, on a lighter note, it might just be the world's most extreme cautionary tale about making fun of someone's hair. So, the lesson is twofold. God protects his chosen messengers, and maybe think twice before commenting on a man's hairline. You just never know when a couple of bears might be listening. Ever heard the phrase, eaten by worms? It sounds like something out of a medieval horror movie, right? Well, it's actually a direct quote from the Bible, describing the final, agonizing days of a king who let his ego get the better of him. The man's name was Herod Agrippa, and his story is a wild ride. Picture this. King Herod, dressed in his finest royal robes, steps out onto a grand stage to give a speech. He's a powerful guy, and he knows it. As he speaks, the crowd goes absolutely wild. They start shouting, "This isn't the voice of a man, this is the voice of a god." Now what would you do in that situation? A humble person might say, "Whoa guys, let's calm down a bit. I'm just a regular person." But not Herod. He soaked up all that praise like a sponge, never once giving credit or glory to the one true God who had put him in that position of power. He let the adoration go straight to his head, believing he was something more than human. And that's when things take a dark, and frankly, disgusting turn. According to the book of Acts, because he didn't give glory to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down right then and there. But this wasn't a quick, clean exit like a lightning bolt or a heart attack. The text says he was eaten by worms and died. Let that sink in. Historians, like Josephus, who wrote about this period, corroborate this account with even more graphic detail. They describe a sudden, excruciating pain in his stomach, followed by 5 days of torment. It wasn't just a few worms. It was likely a severe internal parasitic infection. Essentially, his insides were being consumed while he was still alive. He rotted from the inside out. It's a truly horrifying way to go, and it serves as a powerful and chilling reminder about the dangers of pride and forgetting where true power comes from. It's a story that's stuck with people for 2,000 years. A cautionary tale about what can happen when we start believing our own hype. Why are these in the Bible? Because the Bible isn't a fairy tale. It's a raw, unfiltered look at a broken world and a God who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. If you want more uncensored Bible deep dives, you know what to do. We are 20 subs away from 500. Hit that button and let's reach it. Which of these stories was the wildest to you? Thanks for watching.